What? Well, hello and welcome to Off the Bench here on a Wednesday, midway through this week. And what a week it's been here in Cincinnati. Truly, what a glorious week. What a glorious week it's been. I'm Reed Mouse. We have a fun show for you today. We're going to be talking a lot about the first half of the show. Once again, we're going to be talking about the Bengals. I promise we're going to be talking about some other things here coming forward. Well, at the end of the show, we're going to be talking about the UC Bearcats as one of the hosts of Chatterbox Bearcats. Eric Lilly will be coming on. But there's just so much to unpack when it comes to the Bengals, and I want to continue unfolding this and keep hearing. I know you guys have some opinions. I've got some opinions. Stone has some opinions. We have a mailbag, the favorite segment of the week on the show. Mailbag coming in later on in this show, and we're excited to give you that. There was some Reds news. As well, so we'll get into that. Reed Mouse, Stone Shields. Stone, how are you on this lovely Wednesday? It was nice. Thank you for filling in on the post-deadline show. I was planning on doing that, but I wasn't able to do it. Some things came up in personal life and couldn't get there. Thank you so much for being a part of that. And thank you so much for being here today. It's always welcome to be in your presence.
Yeah. No, that was great. I was happy to do that. I was planning on hopping on regardless anyway. But, I liked kind of the three-people stream there. We had Case on there with Craig, and we kind of went back and forth there. So that was a lot of fun. Had some decent viewership there. We vented a little bit. We talked in depth about the Logan Wilson trade and how that could change the trajectory of this franchise. But, that was fun. Fun little late afternoon trade deadline show.
Yeah. I don't know where you were at in terms of being surprised or what your reaction was about the trade deadline, but we'll get into that soon enough. I want to start off the show talking about a rumor that circulated yesterday. It was from Mike Florio. And I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but it was something along the lines of heads are going to roll here in Cincinnati. And very soon we should hear about Duke Tobin, the de facto GM here in Cincinnati, losing his job, and the Bengals starting a search to find someone else to head up player personnel roles. And I'll be honest, I don't think there is an ounce of validity to any of this rumor. I think Mike Florio got a camera in front of him and a mic in front of him, and he said his opinion on all heads are going to roll because, and the reason he does that, to give credit to Mike Florio, is because that's what teams do. Based off of the way that this franchise has gone, or this season has gone, or the last season has gone, and everything going forward, that's what teams do. That's what franchises do. I've said it all week. You did not get to keep your job when you are an embarrassment for 7 weeks in a row. And when you've had this role for 26 years, and you've had pretty much 2 really successful years in the 26 years of being in the front office, he always hasn't had this exact role. Started out in the scouting department and has moved his way up. But that doesn't happen here in Cincinnati, does it? We don't get rid of. Heads don't roll here in Cincinnati. And to credit the Cincinnati Bengals, good franchises typically have a steady hand at the top. They're not frequently, it's not a revolving door of coaches and GMs and quarterbacks. It's pretty steady if you look at the best teams in this league. Howie Roseman's been the GM of the Eagles now for about 15 years. Andy Reid's been the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs for about 15 years. Even in our division, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, and the people that head up those organizations. But those teams have a steady hand because those guys are successful. When you have the same thing over and over again, when you're consistently thought of as a laughingstock of an organization, then why is there still the same leadership? Why is that? Doesn't make any sense. This team doesn't make any sense. I started up this week after the loss against the Chicago Bears. I started this week fired up because I genuinely, my dumb donkey brain genuinely believed that there would be significant changes to this organization, because where they're heading is nowhere fast. They are heading down the hill like a snowball catching steam. To where just a few years ago we were thought of as one of the true contenders in the AFC and one of the true contenders in the NFL. And now, when you listen to national podcasts or national radio, we are often a footnote and a laughing one, the comedic presence when they do talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. I truly thought that we'd have some direction, I guess is the best word. We could open up the door and see a little bit of direction from the Cincinnati Bengals to say, we're going to go in a new direction with the head coach. We're going to go in a new direction with the director of player personnel or general manager. We're going to go in a new direction with the construction of this team by getting rid of guys like Trey Hendrickson. But instead, we're holding on to him, and we're going to do the same thing that we've done for the last 3 off seasons, which is talking about the dude that we tagged for 5 months. Because that's likely what's going to happen. We're going to tag Trey, and it's going to be over and over again, and we're on this carousel. And now, I truly thought that. And now I'm just beaten down. Now I'm just laying on the mat. Took too many to the chin. Didn't protect my face well enough. Lips bloody. Can't see out of one eye. And I'm just beaten down because I know that anytime that I think something is going to happen drastically for this team, it's got to fall in their lap. Because they're not proactive enough to make the changes themselves. And what do I mean by fall in their lap? You got to have a Joe Burrow fall in your lap. You've got to have an opportunity like we had in 2021 draft to where either one of the guys that we were talking about drafting, Jamar Chase, who I still hold could be the greatest Bengal of all time, or Penei Sewell, who looks like the best offensive lineman in the league, we were going to hit a home run either way. Falling into their lap. Those are the things that have to happen here in Cincinnati. We are not proactive enough to actually make sincere change in this town. And I'm afraid that we never will be. But I've been wrong before, oftentimes. Stone, I saw your guys' podcast. I know you talked about it on the end of the trade deadline. But this rumor circulating that Mike Florio said, heads will roll and Duke Tobin will soon be out as the de facto GM of the Cincinnati Bengals. Do you think there's any validity to it at all?
No, I'm in agreement with you here. I think, as you touched on, and we were talking earlier this morning, it's like Florio's probably looking at this thing going, well, it's, historically, or as you like to say, hilariously bad defense, one of the worst of all time, literally trending in that direction. Like, there's a real possibility here at the end of the year. Bengals defense here in 25 is the worst defense of all time. So he's probably in his head going, well, heads have to roll, right? This is historically bad, hilariously bad. It doesn't always work that way here in Cincinnati. As I said yesterday on the live show, it makes my ears perk up a little bit. Like, okay, we got a national guy saying there might be something here. But until, there's more reporting, right? Again, as far as I know, sitting here at a little past 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, he's the only guy nationally that's came out and said there might be a little something to this. So maybe my ears perk up a little bit, but until I hear some more reporting about this, I'm not really going to buy it. But as I've said on this show, I think that's the guy. If you're going to make the big move, that's the guy that I would let go. But we'll see. At the end of the day, probably just rumors, probably just rumblings. But I think it's somewhat noteworthy. But I don't think it's one of those situations where it's like, well, when there's smoke, there's fire. There's not really enough smoke yet for me.
I don't think there's any smoke.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any smoke at all. I think that Mike Florio got a camera in front of his face and simply said, yeah, they got it. They're going to do something because that's what teams do. I don't think there's not a cloud of smoke coming up from Paycor Stadium. And I bet you after Mike Florio had that report, some other reporters checked in and be like, hey, is there any validity to this? And of course the Bengals aren't going to be like, yeah, we're gonna get rid of our GM here soon. But we'd see more stuff come out of it. We'd see more, and we're not seeing a single thing. So let's talk about the status quo. And that's what the Bengals are doing. The trade deadline yesterday was at 4 o'clock. The only move that the Bengals made was yesterday before we started the show. Logan Wilson is traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a 7th-round pick. That was the only move they did. Logan Wilson, of course, asked to be traded a few weeks prior. And then there was like, all right, well, is this the sign of the Bengals kind of heading in a new direction of, hey, we're going to get as many shots, as much ammo in the NFL draft? And I use that analogy on purpose because if the Bengals were in a gun range, they would need a lot of ammo to hit that target if the target is the NFL draft. Just look at 2 years ago in the 3rd round where we drafted Jermaine Burton and McKinley Jackson. Those are supposed to be starters on your team, and neither one can dress on a Sunday. But the Bengals' playoff odds at this moment are 6%. And the powers that be, the Duke Tobins and Zach Taylors of the world said, that's still a chance. That's still a chance. No need to get rid of the pieces that aren't going to be here next year. No need to actually help the future of this franchise because we're still going to scrap it on out for the rest of this year. This is a team that is 1-6 over their last 7 games. That even though you can look at their schedule and see that they have 3 easy wins. Yeah, we saw what they've done the last 2 weeks. 3 easy wins at the end of their schedule. They're now entering the hardest stretch of their schedule. A 5-game stretch against the New England Patriots, the Buffalo Bills, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and 2 games against the Baltimore Ravens. To where even if they win those last 3 games, you're going to have to expect this team to go 3-2 over that 5-game stretch to get to 9-8, which still might not get the job done. And reminder, this team's 1-6 over the last 7 weeks. So what makes you think this bye week's going to flip a switch? And this team's going to fire on out all cylinders. And the 2022 Bengals are back in town, baby. Because as Stone has put it earlier on in this show, and if I've put it all week, this defense is on the trend to be the worst defense in the history of the NFL. 3 guys, the top 3 leaders in missed tackles, arguably the worst stat in the league, are all Cincinnati Bengals. That's the team we're going to cheer to victory. They decided it was worth more to them to keep Trey Hendrickson than to trade him away for a mid-round pick. They decided it was worth more to them than to keep guys like B.J. Hill or Cam Taylor-Britt. Even if you could get a draft pick for McKinley Jackson, who's probably never going to see the field on this team. Instead, all we get at the end of the draft pick, end of the trade deadline, is another 7th-round pick. And what have the Cincinnati Bengals done in the 7th round? We play the hits such as DJ Ivey, Marcus Bailey, Wyatt Hubert, Jeff Gunter. Some home run hitters. In fact, the last player that the Bengals have drafted in the 7th round that's been worth his weight in spit is Auden Tate. Almost 8 years ago. So it's just hilarious that while the ship is sinking, and it feels like this ship is sinking, and I'm not saying that just because, I am a reactionary fan, which I am. I'm not just saying that because I've seen them now lose 6. I'm seeing it because water's getting above the shoreline, baby. It start filling in the cracks. And we still feel like there's nothing being done. We're just going to keep riding it out, and we're going to see if this team can go on a miracle run with the defense they have and the high potent offense that they have. And maybe Joe Burrow saves the day and plays the last 4 games, and they win all 4 games, and maybe they can scratch out 2 more wins somewhere else. All that noise, which we know is just that, noise. This team continues to, quite honestly, break my heart. I mean, quite honestly. Because they aren't operating like a serious franchise. That's the trend that the young kids like to say on TikTok and on Twitter, this team's unserious, and they are. This organization is unserious, and they are. And the status quo is the status quo. Zach Taylor will be our head coach more than likely. Duke Tobin will be the whatever his job role is. He's the de facto GM. And we'll roll into next year, crossing those fingers that Joe Burrow stays healthy and this defense somehow magically, miraculously got better and is competent once again. And we might get a really easy schedule next year because we're trending to be the third-place team in the division. We might even be the fourth-place team if the Browns somehow figure it out. And that's all we're doing, just crossing our fingers that something miraculously falls in our lap. Am I getting too beat up, Stone? Am I getting too beat up?
No, not at all. I mean, I think this is just kind of the reality of where you're at as a team. And I think part of what makes it so demoralizing is there's no light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Correct.
There's no move where it's like, oh, there's a reason to be optimistic about this, or, oh, there's going to be a change in leadership. Like, there's no signs that that's going to be the case. And it seems like we're just going to, lick our wounds this year. We'll see how many games we win, right? I think one thing, and maybe this is just because I'm a fan, but, I mean, Zach Taylor always wins at the end of the year, right? I know the schedule's hard, but part of me is like, is he going to do that again this year? I mean, it doesn't really feel likely, I guess, that he will, especially, and we'll talk about this. I saw one of the mailbag questions is about Burrow, but you got to wonder, like, how much worse can this thing get? Like, is there a world where you don't win a single game the rest of the year? I mean, I think that's a possibility. But also, you scored 80 points the past 2 weeks. I think, unfortunately for the people that want a higher draft pick, there's a world where you could win 4 or 5 games. So it just kind of feels like you're stuck in the mud. It doesn't feel like you're trending in the right direction. It doesn't feel like you're doing enough to retool. You're just kind of staying where you're at. And if you just stay where you're at, then that kind of gets back to the whole point of what we've talked about wasting Burrow and wasting Chase and wasting Higgins. Mm-hmm. You do this for a couple more years. You look up, Higgins, Chase are out of their prime. Who knows what Burrow's doing, and you still are just talking about that 21 Super Bowl, and you got nothing else to show for it.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that 21 Super Bowl for years and years to come, because man, it's not getting better. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's the way it's trending is. I guess the best thing I hope for is that we do lose, because the only thing the Bengals have shown me is things falling in their lap. And when do things fall in your lap? When you have a top 5 pick. And hopefully the Bengals can get there. It seems like a pretty decent draft this year, and not only is it the top 5 pick, but then you get a mid-30s pick to start the second round, which we've also been pretty successful at. Like, these are spots that this team has done okay in. Look at guys like, T. Higgins, guys like Jesse Bates was a mid-40s pick, but a Joe Mixon who was a 48th pick. Like, we've had some success in the early parts of the second round. Where we have had no success, and what is the most likely scenario is drafting in the middle of the first round. And I can't believe that based off the way the Cincinnati Bengals have played the last 2 weeks and really the last 7 weeks, that there was not significant change made towards this operation. Whether there be a change in direction for the rest of this season, whether it be a change at the leadership roles from Duke Tobin to Zach Taylor, or even Al Golden would have been a noteworthy thing. And it's hard for me to call for Al Golden because he's only been the DC for 9 games. Like, that's not enough time to see how good you are, even though we're seeing it's not getting better. In fact, it feels like it's getting worse. As we sit here Wednesday morning, the Bengals don't play for another 11 days. It just feels completely fruitless to me that the Cincinnati Bengals did not make any significant moves in a time where it was pretty clear, it was pretty evident that that's what they should do. To guys like us that just stand and spew some junk into a microphone for a couple hours a day. All right. We mentioned we're going to get Eric Lilly on here later on in the show. We're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bearcats. I took a few peeks at the mailbag. This is the favorite segment of the week, and there's some Reds questions. Yep. There's some Reds questions, so we can get off the lamenting of the Cincinnati Bengals and talk about some other stuff here in town. So without further ado, let's get into Wednesday's mailbag. The reminder, these are all questions that are given to us, real questions, through either our email or our DMs. They're always open. If you guys want to get a question on the show, feel free to chime in there. But we got some good ones for you today. Wednesday's mailbag. Stone?
All right, Reds conversation coming, but do have a couple of Bengal ones that we'll get to here off the bat. Dear Off the Bench, longtime viewer, first-time mailbagger. My question regards the Cincinnati Bengals, more specifically their front office. All I hear is people say negative things about them, but I think they've done a pretty good job throughout their tenure, but are currently just going through a bit of a rough patch. What are your opinions on the Bengals front office? And this mailbag question comes in. It says, no name given, but it comes from the Dookie T at yahoo.net.
Oh, didn't give a name, but we did. That was his email address. The Dookie T at yahoo.net. I wonder who that could be. Wanting to know about the Bengals front office and why it feels like there's only negative press about them. I'll tell you why there's only negative press about you. It starts with Shamar Stewart and Demetrius Knight and Dalen Fairchild and Barrett Carter and Jalen Rivers and Amarius Mims and Chris Jenkins and Jermaine Burton and McKinley Jackson and Eric All and Josh Newton and let's go to the free agency and Geno Stone and name them, baby. That's why there is no negative or only negative words around the front office, because you're not doing your job well. You get pats on your back when you do good things. And for the past 3 years, you missed at everything. Free agency, draft picks, coordinating hires. You've missed it all. So you want a pat on your back? Get this team in the right direction. The Dookie T at yahoo.net. Next question. Or I don't know if you have any words or anything to add.
Just real quick, Craig brought up a good point on a live show yesterday. So Paul Dehner Jr. writes for The Athletic. Tremendous job covering the Bengals. He actually wrote a piece in 23, which is not that long ago, about Duke Tobin potentially being one of the most underrated general managers in all of the NFL. And that kind of, I vaguely remember that reading that piece a couple of years ago. But then you just look at you just laid it out perfectly, all the misses. But even in 23, like what had he done around then? And I brought up this point yesterday on the live show. When you have a quarterback that's on a rookie deal, you can afford to swing and miss. That's okay. Oh, you didn't hit on that 5th-round pick? That's okay. You still have, resources you could allocate in other spots. But when you're paying the quarterback big-time money and you're paying your two weapons big-time money, I mean, the margins really get thin, and you can't afford to have these misses, especially early in the draft. So if you've been in a position since 1999, you're going to have some hits, right? You've been doing it for a long time. Shoot, you throw me and you in there, Reader, and we'd probably have a couple of hits there as well. I think we could have handled the Joe Burrow pick. But recently, when you're paying the quarterback, you have to have something to hang your hat on, and as you alluded to, miss after miss after miss.
So I was texting about this, and like I said, I know that he wasn't in the position of power that he is currently in back in 1999 when he first joined this team. But I'm reminded of this. In 1999, this is a little Bengals history for you. In 1999, the New Orleans Saints, with their fresh new head coach, Mike Ditka, really wanted Ricky Williams. And they were willing to do anything to get Ricky Williams on the New Orleans Saints. They offered the Cincinnati Bengals in 1999, first year that Duke Tobin entered the front office. They offered the Bengals for their 3rd overall pick so that they could draft Ricky Williams. They offered him the 1st-round pick that year, the 1st-round pick the next year, the 3rd-round pick that year, the 4th-round pick, the 5th-round pick, the 6th-round pick of in 1999, and then the 3rd and 4th-round pick of the next year. So 2 first, 9 picks overall just to move up to draft Ricky Williams. The Bengals turned it down and instead drafted Akili Smith. And who were some other names in that top 10 overall in the 1999? Tell me if you've heard these names before. Donovan McNabb went in that draft in the top 10. Edgerrin James, Ricky Williams, Torrey Holt, Champ Bailey, David Boston, Chris McAllister, Dante Culpepper. Javon Kirsch came a little later. We went with Akili Smith and didn't want more ammo in that draft either. That was the year that Duke Tobin entered this team. So, yeah. Next mailbag.
OTB. Joe Burrow is still slated to come back in the middle of December. The Bengals are currently 3-6 with their toughest stretch still ahead. Simply put, do you want to see Joe Burrow play this year? That comes in from Joe Flacco.
Oh, so Joe's wondering if his job is still around. No, I don't want Joe Burrow to play this year. Why would I want Joe Burrow to play this year? When his health is the most important thing that happens with this organization. And it's one thing when I talk about crossing your fingers and hoping things just get a little better. That's the one thing that you can always just – because we're not going to get rid of him. You shouldn't get rid of him. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So you can just cross your fingers and hope that Joe Burrow's health. And I don't want Joe Burrow coming back short from an injury just to, win a few more games at the end of the year. As a Bengals fan, I love watching Joe Burrow and the Bengals play every Sunday. Even when they break my heart and stomp on it. I just enjoy sitting down and watching them at 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. or whenever they play. And I love watching him play, but I don't need to see him play for the rest of this year. Because if the goal is to get as early in the draft as you can possibly get, I don't want our odds to get better at winning some football games. Even though Joe Flacco looks nails out there. I don't need to see Joe Burrow play again. What say you?
If you are mathematically eliminated, I definitely don't want to see him play. Could there be a chance there's a couple weeks left where you're not fully mathematically eliminated, but you got to win out and you need help from all across the conference? Then the question is, do you still want him to play? I think my answer to that is if he's 100%. This can't be a situation where you rush him back, right? And I'm not a toe expert, I'm not going to act like I am, but if you re-aggravate that injury and you need surgery again, that's going to dip into your 2026 offseason, obviously, and potentially maybe, into training camp and the season there as well. So for now, it feels like they're going to be mathematically eliminated here shortly, right? Based on the performance that you've seen in recent weeks, only reason that would lead you to believe that might not be the case is because they're, scored 80 points the past couple of weeks. I think they've scored the most points in the NFL since week 6 and have only won one game. So that's the only reason. If you're out of it, or probably even for me, if it's just a complete shot in the dark that you make it, I don't want to see him again.
Fair.
All right, here we go. Next question. It looks like we've gone international here for this one. Hello, Raider. Pip, pip, cheerio to you, you bloody bloke. I'm a Reds fan from across the pond, don't you know? And I'm optimistic about the club going into the cold months. Yesterday, got a picture from your cubbies. Keegan Thompson. I thought it was a bloody brilliant move. What say you? And that comes in from the former Prince Andrew. Is that good?
That was fantastic, Stone. That was absolutely fantastic. I didn't know you had that in you. That was brilliant. Bloody brilliant. Keegan Thompson. So, yeah, he's a former Cubby, former early pick. He was kind of, as a Cubs fan, I'll just lay this out. He was kind of the first name because for a while there, the Cubs did not draft pitchers. And they didn't really not only did they not draft pitchers, they really focused on hitters, but they didn't develop them either. And Keegan, at the end of the core, right? You're looking at 2020, 2021, when the core was kind of dissipating. Keegan Thompson was kind of the guy that we're looking like, hey, we need you to be an ace. We need you to be really good. He never got there, but I really liked Keegan Thompson and what he was able to do. Strikes out a lot of batters and doesn't have a whole lot of velocity. He throws 6 pitches, which I always found weird. Like, Yu Darvish throws like 9 pitches. Like, I'd rather you just throw 3 or 4 pitches that are really good. But he throws 6 good pitches, and he's a swing man. Like, he's a guy that can get you 9 outs if you need 9 outs. He can start a game if you need him to start a game, and he also can come in high leverage spots because he strikes out a lot of guys. Now, he walks a lot of guys, but he's someone that if your end goal is to get, I said this all the time, the currency of baseball is outs. And every front office is trying to figure out how they can get as many outs as possible without giving up as many runs. And how can you do it efficiently? Keegan Thompson has no options, so if he makes the team, he's going to be up on the major league roster for the foreseeable future for the season. And if he's been what he's been able to be back in 2023, or 2024 rather, and be kind of that swing guy that gets a lot of strikeouts for the Reds, can come in on a pinch. Someone gets hurt and you need someone to start on a random Sunday. He can be that guy. And I think that's a low-risk pick or low-risk pickup for the Cincinnati Reds with some guy with some serious talent. Now, I think he had a bad year in AAA last year because he didn't pitch a whole lot, if at all, for the Cubs in 2025. So overall, I think it's a low-risk pickup, a guy that can kind of I saw some people on our Discord, I think even Kirby called this, he feels like a Diet Right version of Nick Martinez. Where you can get a much cheaper guy that can kind of go both, kind of swing as a starter or get you a lot of outs. I don't know if you had an opinion on Keegan Thompson. You probably I know you haven't watched him pitch a whole lot.
Correct. Yes. No, I'll definitely check to you and check to Nick Kirby on that. Nick, by the way, put out a video yesterday. It's up on the channel. Great stuff, kind of breaking down the whole move. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've watched him pitch or knew who he was until yesterday. But if you're picking up a guy and signing a guy on November 4th, I mean, that shows me that you like something. There's something there, and the Reds in this kind of market, you have to hit on these kind of diamond in the rough type moves, and they seem like they like him. He's a guy that's not going to blow you away with his fastball, but has lots of different pitches, and there's the versatility that maybe he could start for you. Maybe he's a pin guy. You're going to need that kind of guy. The Martinez comparison there is good. And, you got 4 locks. Well, and if you trade Hunter Green, maybe not. But for your rotation, you still don't know exactly how you're going to go with that 5th guy. I don't think the plan is for him to be that guy. I think they probably want him to be more of a bullpen guy. But, yeah, if you sign somebody at this stage of the year, I think, that means the organization clearly likes him, clearly wants him. Don't love the fact that he was in AAA all of last year. But, yeah, I mean, it's not like you're paying tens of millions of dollars to get him. It's pretty friendly as far as his deal goes. So, yeah, I'm here for it. I got no issues with it.
Yeah, and the other thing that is a little troubling is that he spent, all of 2025 in AAA, and it was a bad year. And it was his worst ERA. In terms of ERA, it was his worst year. I think he had like a 4 or 5, something like that. But he's a talented pitcher. Throws 6 pitches. I think if you look at pro stuff and see, the 6 pitches that he throws, they all grade pretty well. And then when you don't throw that hard, you gotta be able to be kind of a trickster up there on the bump. But Keegan Thompson, I think he'll be a good pick. I think at the end of the year, we're gonna be talking about Keegan Thompson save this season. No. Yeah. But I think he's gonna be a more than productive pitcher for the Reds in 2026.
All right, next mailbag question here. Got a couple of more. Off the bench, Tito Francona is a finalist for the National League Manager of the Year. I think that is absolute lunacy. He consistently held back our talented roster and had no awareness of putting the talent we did have in the best spots to succeed. Your thoughts on Tito getting this recognition comes in from our very own Nick Kirby.
Kirby, thanks for the question. Yeah, I saw some Reds fans talking about Terry Francona being a National League Manager of the Year award finalist and kind of getting mad about it. Like, why? He shouldn't be getting this recognition. And I would simply ask you this question. In what world would Terry Francona not be a finalist for the Manager of the Year? He took a team in his first year, a guy with some prominence, so that adds to it already, right? That when these baseball writers, they know who Terry Francona is, obviously, and he goes to the Reds and takes them to the postseason for the first time in 12 years in a full season. And granted, there were some lean parts of the season, and they didn't do well in the postseason. They played the world champion Dodgers, so it's a tough ask to win out there in LA regardless. But in what world was Terry Francona not going to be a finalist for this award? You can have your reservations about what he was doing this past offseason. You can say, or past season, about obviously was a different direction in what the manager did, where it wasn't as analytically driven. It wasn't, matchup driven in the same way that David Bell was. It was a much different look this year. But point blank, the dude comes in with a name and comes to the Reds, takes them to the postseason in year 1. Every single time that person's going to be a finalist for the awards. You do that across the board. If Bruce Bochy takes the Marlins in this first year, if he goes to the Marlins and in their first year makes the postseason, even if it's because of another team like the New York Mets completely has a disaster season, but he takes them to the postseason, he's going to be a finalist for the award. If someone, if Joe Torre, Tony La Russa, whoever, Connie Mack goes and coaches, is the manager for the Colorado Rockies, and they make it as the third wild card team, and he could have pulled every wrong lever and been negative 10 wins, like really cost them 10 wins. But they made the postseason as the third wild card team. Guess what? He's gonna be a finalist for the award. I saw some fans get in an uproar about this, and it just like, what are we talking about? Of course he's gonna be a finalist for this award. So, yeah, I don't know if you had an opinion on that.
Yeah, we got this news on Monday, actually, when we were doing the Baden Sports Show at Shooters, and I said, yeah, Tito's the finalist for the award, and you were like, yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't he be? And I sat there and I was like, yeah, you're right, absolutely. He was brought in here, big-time name. I think it was a great hire by Cincinnati. I understand some people are frustrated with him. Again, nobody was beating the Dodgers. We saw that. Even Toronto, you thought they had him dead to rights. They couldn't beat him. But, it's a team that last time they were in the playoffs was COVID, and 60-game season. Does that really count? I don't know. And then before that, it was 2013. And what did he do? He got them to the postseason. It was a team that could have been down and out 10, 15 times. Each time they got back up. I think that's a reflection on the manager. Did a great job. Is he going to win it? I'd probably give it to Murphy. I don't like the Brewers at all, obviously. But
no, he's not going to win it.
Yeah.
He's not going to win it.
I'd
Pat
probably
Murphy
give it to
will
Murphy, right?
Pat Murphy will certainly win it.
Yeah. But, absolutely deserves to be a finalist here.
But real quickly.
Yeah.
Also, you got to remember that the people that vote on these awards are the beat writers for the National League team. So there's, I think, 30. So there's 15 teams, 2 from each team. I think that's how the Baseball Writer Association of America works for these awards. So, like, when we're talking about the beat writers of the Phillies, they're not watching Terry Francona day in and day out. All they see is that a guy that's had success somewhere else comes into this team and takes them to the postseason in year one. Yeah, that's going to a team that has not been good for 12 years and takes him to the postseason in year one. So, yeah, that's why he's going to be a finalist for the award. He's not going to win the award. But final question.
Final one. Here we go. OTB. Yesterday, it was reported that the Reds' 2026 payroll will be similar to 2025. To me, that shows this franchise isn't serious about winning and never will be. What do you make of this report? Comes in from Bert and also his friend Ernie.
Oh, Bert and Ernie, they watch the show. What about that?
I love Sesame Street.
Yeah, Sesame Street. Apparently, they have YouTube in Sesame Street. Good. I'm glad we have some fans over there in Sesame Street. But I saw this, and the knee-jerk reaction, obviously it's a salacious thing, right? It's a salacious thing to hear, oh, this team's not going to commit more to winning, right? Not going to commit more money to winning, especially on a year where they made the postseason. And it feels like things are kind of going forward. And you can kind of push forward, and you're like, well, you got to strike while the iron's hot, do you not? And then I just remembered, like, this team's there's a huge cloud hanging over Major League Baseball right now. And I don't think a lot of teams want to commit over amounts of money without knowing where the league is headed after the CBA is done. So I think you just kind of tread water and just go, all right, able to make the postseason. What can we do going forward? We got to be smart with our money. For anyone thought that the Reds were going to up their payroll $50 million, that's also kind of silly too. Like, we kind of knew this was going to be the case. And if anything, it lets you be able to see, all right, this is how much money we have to work with going into this year. This is what we're playing with going into the offseason, and it'll let you put the piece of the puzzle together if you're a Reds fan and like doing that sort of thing. So I don't think this was earth-shattering news. I know it was depressing for some Reds fans, but it kind of is what it is. Like, I think that let me put it this way. There's a term that we use a lot in media, and it's a nothing burger. This feels a little like a nothing burger. Like, that kind of is what you thought the payroll is, what it's going to be. I don't know if you had a take before we get into our guest stuff.
Yeah, I mean, not surprised at all. I mean, this is going to be a small market team. This is probably what you're going to be dealing with on a year in, year out basis, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a little bit aggressive and try to sign somebody. You still have some money to make that happen, and they need to do that because, as we talked about, I think it's a success last year, getting to the playoffs, getting to the wild card round, but you can't just say, oh, we made the playoffs. We can win a World Series with this roster. Let's run it back. No, you still need to make some improvements, despite the fact that you don't have, Dodger or Yankee money.
Right, no doubt about it. All right, we promised not to talk too much about the Cincinnati Bengals all too often, so we're gonna break a little bit. We're getting one of the guys from Chatterbox Bengals, Eric. Eric, how are you, my man? Thank you for coming on here on the show. We thank you for hopping on, and how's it going, man?
Doing all right. we're this bye week with football and basketball starting at the same time, so it's the best time of the year to be a college sports fan right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Obviously, Chatterbox Bearcats is doing well here on our channel. Let's talk about the football team. Point blank here, what the heck happened on Saturday? Go into Utah, obviously was a big game. I know that there was it's a tough ask to go out there, play at 10 p.m. You were 10-point underdogs, but just didn't seem to show up. What the heck happened on Saturday?
Yeah, and this is a late kickoff too, so a lot of people are probably actually wondering what happened because they fell asleep early in the game or didn't make it to kick.
No doubt.
We had a similar problem with the Nebraska game with dealing with the environment, I think. And while Sorsby did play better against Utah, there was still a lot to be desired with like decision making and losing the game on the margins, I think. So we turned the ball over for the first time in a while, 3 times. And, it just things weren't clicking. Every swing play was going Utah's way. And they had that big special teams play that kind of just put it to rest.
Right. So you're 5-1 in the conference. Is there still hope that we can get to that Big 12 championship?
Yes.
Yes.
The vibes are a little down on Twitter right now, but it's plus 800. It's possible. If we win out, we're there. Like I tweeted last week, we control our own destiny here. Right. Utah has 2 losses. We have 1. So we have to beat BYU, Arizona, and TCU to get there. It's possible, but I'd be lying to you if I wasn't a little broken right now after watching that performance.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you just lose to Utah in the way that you did. You drop out of the rankings. Luckily, you get to come back home, and 2 teams are going to be coming across the country back to you guys, where you guys had to cross the country to Utah. You've got Arizona coming this week, and you got BYU, who's in the top 10 as well. Do you like your chances in 2 weeks against Arizona? Did the bye come at the right time? Did it feel like this was a much-needed week of rest?
For sure. This bye timing was great. Like it couldn't have been at a better time, in my opinion, because you can tell your players all week, like, hey, guys, we control our own destiny. It's time to get over the loss. We're moving on. Next game up. And you're not lying to them. They're all bought in. The team's bought in. They're saying the right things. They're going to be favored versus Arizona next week. And while it feels like one of those games at this point you can chalk as a W, you got to remember, like, we have lost a lot of games at home that we shouldn't have lost the last couple of years. So I'm still nervous about it. But win that game, and I think all those good vibes come back, and you start to look BYU right in the face. And it's like, if we beat BYU, like, we're heading to TCU to go to Arlington for a chance to play in Arlington. And TCU isn't that like gauntlet road game that Utah and Nebraska were in terms of environment, but they are a good team. We'll probably be underdogs in that game.
Right. Yeah, it's all you can ask for is to be in a position to make some noise, and to do that, you got to beat Arizona, and they're in a position to make some noise as it is right now. And coming into this year, I don't think there was a whole lot of confidence from Bearcats fans revolving their head football coach, Scott Satterfield. Does this season and what they've been able to do to this point kind of breathe new life into the confidence that you have as a fan over the direction of this football team?
For me personally, yeah, I still had a little hope for Satterfield here because of like his approach to developing prospects and recruiting. I think it's the right way for Cincinnati to build right now in the Big 12. Because I know people are upset that we don't get 4 stars and stuff like that, but to me, spending our money on 4-star freshmen that probably aren't going to play is not the way to go. And going for the Joe Royers, going for the Sorsbys in the portal while developing 3 stars, that seems to me to be how Cincinnati should try to build into the Big 12 and level up their program to a power program. So I like the approach, but I needed to see some results. And so far this year, we've seen like results, but we've also seen this team fall apart down the stretch the last 2 years. So I do think it's very important for them to finish strong, because that's just my opinion. I know a lot of fans out there are still extremely concerned, and they will turn on this regime just as fast as they bought back into it.
Right. Yeah, it's a weird from the periphery. The Bearcats football fandom is kind of it's interesting to always kind of check the pulse about, what they're feeling going into a year or where they're headed. But when things are going well, there's few sports teams in this area that they get as excited as the football bunch. And while we talk about expectations, basketball season just started. Obviously, Wes Miller in another year, and it's not been the best ride with Wes Miller as the head basketball coach, but there's always kind of this optimism, like this guy. Like I feel like Bearcats fans want to believe in Wes Miller. Like they see what this young guy that's had some success elsewhere always says the right things. They want to believe that this guy can take them back into the promised land of where the Bearcats were, under Bob Huggins and where they were the last 15 years. What expectations do you have for this basketball team?
Wes really is kind of the opposite of Satterfield in that regard. Like he's just has a natural, just a way of making fans think of what you can be. Mm-hmm. And like you said, and Satterfield, it's more like why did we hire this guy? So I think expectations basketball are really reserved this year. Like there hasn't been too much buzz. There were multiple people who just Sunday were like, wait, we have a game tomorrow. And previous years under Wes, you would really start getting fired up about basketball months in advance. So he's killed a little bit of that out of us, I think. But good news for Cincinnati Bearcats fans is we have a completely new team this year other than Day-Day Thomas. The expectations still remain to make the tournament. Let's see if that's possible. I think it is, but I'm really excited to see the topic right now of the Western Carolina game was how fast we played. That's the fastest game we've played in 3 years, 80 possessions, and Wes is not backing down from it publicly. He is straight up saying we are going to play this fast, and I know coaches do that every offseason, but to see it makes me start kind of buying it, and the team is built for that. So I think we're going to see a new look team that plays fast. Got to get in transition with this team. You got to take advantage of having Kirk Risa and Day-Day Thomas and these shooters, because the Cincinnati Bearcats don't typically have shooters. So we got to get them open in the corner on transition, semi-transition, and maximize the talent we got.
Yeah, that talent and, that kind of pace that you guys played against the Catamounts, the high-powered team of the Catamounts of Western Carolina on Monday. Shooters, what will the engine of this team be? Is it the talent that you have? Is it going to be working at a breakneck speed? Is it going to be, gotta shoot? Because obviously they did not score at a high clip last year. What's this engine going to be? What's going to make this team turn?
I think it's got to start with the defense. Mustafa Cham was the big addition in the portal, 7'2" center from UCF. He really came into his own at the end of his freshman year in the Big 12 last year. And, usually it's the other way around. A guy does well in out of conference and then kind of falls apart down the stretch. He got better and better, and he's young. He's the same age as Abayev. And I think the ceiling of this team kind of lies with Cham's. We need that rim protection. He's got the lanky arms. He runs the floor too. So this is what I think get all the defense. That is the engine, because defense is going to get us into transition, getting easy buckets. Because until I see a Wes Miller coach team succeed in the half court, I'm just going to think how we're going to have to win.
Sure. Final question I got for you: what can derail this season?
Oh man.
Because you got the talent. You've got the talent, I think.
Yeah, and there is just to point out that talent. A Baba Miller is a 6'11" power forward who's on NBA radars. Cham, who I just mentioned, NBA radars. Sean Abayev, NBA radars.
Right.
This is a talented team. It's just different. And I think the thing that can derail this season, the two most important to watch, is going to be that half-court offense. Can they be competent with these new guys? We have scores everywhere. We have old players, not like a young 5-star team. And then two, I'm pretty concerned about the rebounding. Western Carolina have that 5 or that 4 that is just known for rebounding. Chom can rebound offensively. We didn't see it much versus Western Carolina, but Bob and Miller's kind of skinny. It's going to kind of be Tyler McKinley, the local kid. He's going to be playing a lot now that Jalen Haynes is out, and he looks like the type that can rebound. And we really need him to step up, because if it's not him, it's going to be guards and skinny bigs.
All right, Eric, thank you so much for hopping on here, giving us part of your day. Eric Lilly from Chatterbox Bearcats. It's a bye week for the football team. Charlie, Houdini, and the entire crew, the entire roster you got there. Any big streams, any big shows coming out this week? Are you on Chatterbox Bearcats anytime soon?
Yep. Me and Niehaus will be dropping the midweek show tonight, I think. We're doing a mailbag episode because it's the bye week. And Chuck and Houdini have their work cut out for them. This is instant reaction season with all the games on the horizon. So check out those guys too. And we might even do a 3-man or a 4-man weave every once in a while.
Love it. And mailbag. That's the favorite segment here on Chatter, or on Off the Bench here in the morning. Eric Lilly, thank you so much for hopping on. We'll talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, see you, man. UC Bear Kittens. I like what he said about if you're able to beat Arizona next Saturday, and I really do think that the bye is coming at the right time. If you're able to beat Arizona next week, you put yourself, all you can ask for it is being in a situation to make some noise. And if you're able to beat Arizona next week, you can look at that BYU game and go, we've got to play 60 minutes. We've got to be a team, one of the best teams in the country, for 60 minutes at home, be a raucous crowd at Nippert Stadium. Can we get that done? And who knows? I mean, it's an amazing spot to be here in college football, where like all of a sudden you're looking at, if we can win this game, we're going to the Big 12. We could go to the Big 12 championship, really make some noise, and make a college football playoff. That'd be really, really exciting, especially from a football team that I don't think there was a whole lot of huge aspirations or expectations coming into this year. Fan morale was pretty low, especially when it comes to Scott Satterfield. So, let's hope that the UC Bearcats basketball team isn't very good, though. Let's hope that they're not very good. As a Xavier Musketeer fan, I got to get out. I haven't been to Fifth Third for a UC game. I've been there for high school games and stuff like that. I haven't been to a UC game since Fifth Third was renovated. 10 years? Has it been 10 years?
No.
Has it not been that long, or has it been longer?
No, not that long.
Okay, so it's been like 5 years, 6 years?
Like 4 or 5, I thought.
Okay.
3, 4, 5, something like that.
Is there any game, without look off the top of your head, because I know you're a Bearcats guy.
Yeah.
Is there any game that you're circling, like, I got to get down to Fifth Third for this game? Like, do they welcome in Texas? Do they welcome in Kansas? Anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know if BYU comes to Fifth Third. Off the top of my head, that would be one that I'm going to. They got, Wright, the transfer from Baylor, and then the freshman who's supposed to be the best player in college basketball. So if the BYU game is at home, that could potentially be one. You can't go wrong. The Big 12 in basketball, that was kind of the great thing about UC coming over to the Big 12. It's like, okay, yeah, football, it's nice not, being in the American anymore. But the Big 12 basketball, maybe it's not as good this year as last year, but holy cow. I mean, that is a real conference. Houston, if that's at home, that would be the top one to go to.
Right, it is at home. It is
the
at
Houston
home
one's at home. That would be
January the 3rd.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Houston, right now, I think they're probably the best team in the country. They obviously should have won the national title last year, and then we choked that away a little bit towards Florida at the end. They've got everybody except Cryer really coming back. So I would say that would be the one circled. If you got to pull it up, is BYU at home? Do you know that off the
BYU is at home as well.
Okay, those would be the two right there. But can you hang with teams like that? I don't know. I think probably one of the issues that I've had with UC basketball is the season starts and you're optimistic and West is saying all the right things, then you beat up on a bunch of bad teams, but then you get the Big 12 play and you just kind of get overwhelmed. I would like to see them challenge themselves a little bit more with the non-conference early on.
They play at Heritage Bank against Louisville.
Okay, there you go. That's big. We like that.
Is the Dayton game at Louisville, or is that at Fifth Third too? That's next weekend. That's the 11th, or next week. This says it is. Oh, that'll be at Fifth Third Arena. So Dayton next week. That'll be a fun game to go to if you can get there. Me and my friends were talking about which games we're going to go to for Xavier this season. I think they play UConn on New Year's Eve, which might not be a fun game if you're a diehard Xavier fan, but it'll be a fun game if you're a basketball fan to go to. But college basketball for me, it's hard for me to get overly invested to college basketball until football's done or until conference play starts. So like until the regular season is done, college football and college or the NFL regular season's done, and I can focus on basketball and conference play, Big East play, and all that stuff. I've long said, obviously, my two biggest fandoms are Bengals, Cubs, and then Xavier would be number 3. And I don't have the time, effort, or energy to get into all the recruiting and transfer portal stuff when it comes to Xavier. So I normally show up right around Thanksgiving and just I'll send Paul a text. It's like, hey, Paul, tell me about the team. Like, what are the names that I need to be circling here? These next games for the next few weeks, I'll catch glimpses of, and maybe even go down to one. But I normally show up around Thanksgiving, show up around the Crosstown Shootout, and be like, all right, who's our team this year? Who we got this year? And then I'll start going to 4 or 5 games throughout the year. But, that was Wednesday's edition of Off the Bench. Thank you so much to the mailbags. Nick Kirby got in here, the former Prince Andrew. He's really in a lot of trouble. He's in a lot of trouble, but still found time to send us an email. The Dookie T at yahoo.net, whoever that is, asking about my thoughts on the front office, the Bengals front office. But it was a fun show for you guys today. We'll get back in at it tomorrow. Stone Shield show coming up right here at 11 here on Chatterbox Sports. See ya.
All right, here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. Happy Wednesday to everybody out there. Appreciate you sticking around through Off the Bench into my show here on a Wednesday. Lots to discuss. We'll talk a little bit about the Cincinnati Bengals. Not going to beat a dead horse there too much with that. Bengals obviously yesterday traded Logan Wilson, got a 7th-round pick, and that was it. So kind of the reverse of what we saw last year at the deadline for Cincinnati, giving up a 7th-round pick for a player. Now they trade a player away and get a 7th-round pick. That was it. Disappointing, not shocking in the slightest that was the only move that Cincinnati made. Certainly would have liked to see them make some more moves, be a little bit more aggressive, getting off some pieces. Would have liked to see Trey Hendrickson get moved. I think you definitely could have got a 3rd-round pick for him. I go back and forth on whether or not I would do it for a 3rd-round pick. 2nd-round pick, I would have been all in. They opt to hold on to him here at this point. We had the live show yesterday right around deadline time with Craig Sandlin and Casey McAllister. That was a lot of fun. That podcast is out. There's also a clip from that out on YouTube there as well. Check that out if you haven't done so already. So we'll talk Cincinnati Bengals a little bit going into the bye, state of the team, but we're not going to spend too much time on them today. But there were some other trades in the NFL, and the trade deadline is something that gets a lot of hype. And some people would argue that it never really delivers to that hype. And I think that's fair to say that it probably does get overhyped. But several significant moves made yesterday around the league, particularly by the New York Jets, who, of course, by the way, beat you 2 weeks ago. They get rid of their 2 best players, or 2 of their 3 best players, right? We'll spend some time talking about that. Also, another move in Seattle, which I think is the best move of the day. We'll talk about that a little bit there as well on today's show. Also, college football playoff rankings. First of those this year came out last night. That certainly is very exciting. And we sit here, we got the AP poll, we got the coaches poll, we do our top 10, and it doesn't really mean much. I think you have a decent gauge of where everything is at. And for the most part, the CFP rankings, reflect the AP poll pretty similarly. But we'll break down those. I mean, it feels real now when you get the college football playoff rankings, and really all that matters is how the committee views these teams, and we'll talk about that. Also, I'll have my top 10. We do it every Wednesday here on the show. Not a ton of changes, particularly there at the top. But we'll go through my college football top 10 there as well. I'm going to do a bit of a new segment to close out today's show. We'll just hit a couple of big sports headlines going into today here on Wednesday, November 5th, and we'll kind of break down those and just spend like a minute or two on each of those headlines. Might be a new segment that we will introduce. Reds obviously made a move. They signed a right-handed pitcher in free agency. We'll talk about that as a little bit part of our sports headlines here on today's show. And, I got a good week of NFL football this week. I feel like some of the matchups in weeks past haven't been, anything crazy, but there are a few good games. The Sunday night game's great. The Monday night game's great. Late afternoon game on Sunday is good. There's a good 1 o'clock game there as well. Thursday night game, unfortunately, stinks, but if we have some time, we'll spend some time talking about that. Appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out. We will have Richard Skinner of Local 12. He'll be on the show on Friday, so looking forward to that. We'll talk Cincinnati Bengals here going into the bye week. We'll get his thoughts on the trade deadline there as well, so don't miss that. That is coming your way on Friday. We'll try to get Hudson Klauke maybe on the show tomorrow. I'll shoot him a text here later this afternoon. Just had a Chatterbox Bearcat guy on off the bench. Would love to get Hudson on to talk UC hoops. That would be certainly productive, I think. We'll spend a little time maybe talking about UC, Utah, but we'll start with the good, and plenty of reason to be optimistic here if you're a Bearcat hoop fan. Maybe we'll get Hudson Klauke on the show tomorrow. But let's start with trade deadline. Start with the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, don't want to beat a dead horse too much here, but we'll kind of recap exactly what went down yesterday. The Bengals, of course, and it was kind of very eerily similar to the 2024 deadline, where they come out immediately on deadline day in the morning, make a move, and you're like, okay, they did something. Maybe they'll do something else. And ultimately, that was the only move in which they made. They send Logan Wilson to Dallas for a 7th-round pick, and he requested a trade. He wanted out. You clearly were going in a different direction as an organization, right? There was no plan for him to come back next year, so you might as well trade him here at that point. Don't love trading the captain, obviously. Not great. I was ticked off when he requested the trade, especially on the heels of a game against Pittsburgh that you win, and it feels like your season's right back in front of you. He requested a trade. Didn't love that, but now that he's gone, he can step back, kind of look at the whole Logan Wilson tenure here in Cincinnati and say, you know what? he did his job. That was good. He deserved that second contract. The Bengals gave it to him. You need more Logan Wilsons here if you're Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor, and the Cincinnati Bengals. That was a hit in the third round. Did you hit it out of the park and he's some Hall of Fame player? No, but he was a really, really solid player, a reliable starter for you, a part of a lot of winning, a good leader, good at the podium, checked a lot of boxes for you, and he gets an opportunity here for a fresh start with the Dallas Cowboys team that certainly needs some help there at that linebacker spot. A guy for Dallas, DeMarvion Overshown, who is a tremendous talent. He suffered a serious injury last year. He's going to be coming back here at some point in a couple of weeks, and but they still need to stabilize that linebacker spot. And I think Logan Wilson can bring some stability, and I feel like he kind of fits in with the Dallas Cowboys, to be honest with you. He just kind of seems like a guy that would fit in with the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys, by the way, they're pretty aligned with how they operate as an organization, to be completely honest with you. They did make a move yesterday that kind of goes away from what the Cowboys typically do here in recent years. That was kind of a, Wildcat Jerry type of move there. We haven't seen a move like that from Jerry Jones in quite some time. Of course, I'm talking about the Quinnen Williams trade. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But again, would have loved to see the Bengals move off a couple of more guys. We mentioned Trey Hendrickson. There's an opportunity to potentially get a comp pick following year, even if he walks after this year. Okay, I still think you could have turned your team in a different direction and really showed that, okay, we need to redo what we're doing here on defense. I thought Craig Sandlin made a good point. He brought up about potentially franchise tagging Trey Hendrickson again, and for my sake, I hope that's not true, because I don't feel like talking about that again this offseason. My gut tells me that's not going to happen, right? Because obviously, I don't know the specific number exactly. I think it's probably like 35 to 37 million, somewhere in there, if you tag him again, which at that point, why not just give him a 2-year deal? But this time around, if Trey Hendrickson gets tagged, he's probably like, okay, that's fine, because he made $30 million this year, and then he'd make more than that, $35+ million next year, if that were the case. So I really hope the Bengals don't do that. But Craig made the point that he thinks that Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor, they might think that they're just if you add Trey Hendrickson to this defense, they can still win a Super Bowl, which clearly you can't here at this point. But I don't know. I would really be frustrated if the Bengals tag Trey Hendrickson again. Look, you keep him, right? So hopefully he can come back and help you win some games and see what you can do. But I had my sights set on this being Trey Hendrickson's final year in stripes for the Cincinnati Bengals. They didn't move him at the deadline. Would have liked to see him get moved. I don't know if that means, obviously, as a head coach, director of player personnel, organization, it's November 5th. You don't really want to quit on the season here at this point, but you're 3-6. You technically still have life if you can go on a run. All Zach Taylor has done in his career here at Cincinnati is go on a run, really, to end the season. But this year, it feels a little bit different, to be honest with you. You got Joe Flacco, who has been sensational, but he's 40 years old. He's really banged up. I don't know how long that injury is going to linger, if that's something he's going to have to deal with throughout the remainder of the year. I don't know. But it's just hard to imagine that they're going to get back in this thing, especially when you look at their schedule. Baltimore twice, Pittsburgh, New England, Buffalo. That could be a lot of losses if this defense doesn't make drastic changes as far as their performance goes there on the football field. So, I get it. Like, if I'm Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin, you can't really afford to punt on the season, right? Especially coming in with Super Bowl aspirations, Super Bowl expectations. But, I would have liked to see them get some compensation there for Trey Hendrickson. Another guy, Noah Fant, I think you could have got a pick from him. Don't have any issues with Noah Fant, but is he a part of your long-term plans here as an organization, right? You paid Gesicki. You hope that he's that guy going forward. Drew Sample's your blocking tight end. It was a great addition at the time, but I think you could have gotten some, maybe a 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick for Noah Fant, which I probably would have explored, to be completely honest with you. Cam Taylor-Britt, right? it's hard to imagine he's back with this team next year. I think you need to part ways with him, cut bait there. I think you could have gotten a 6th or 7th round pick. Howie Roseman, what did they get for Jair Alexander? Obviously, Jair's a big name, but he's kind of fallen off a cliff here. My gut tells me that they would have been a little bit interested in Cam Taylor-Britt. Maybe you can get a 6th or 7th round pick for him. I would have done that. They didn't do that. So I just think that, kind of similar for the Bengals at the deadline. Usually they don't do anything, but these past 2 years they're like, yeah, we'll have an orchestrated trade that involves a 7th round pick. But at the end of the day, not much done. And, here as a fan, what is there to do? You just got to sit there and say, all right, we'll strap it up here. Hopefully can, regroup a little bit at the bye and see what they can do against Pittsburgh. I think the only thing you can hang your hat on this season is that you're 2-0 in the division. We'll see if they can continue that stretch, go to Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium, whatever it's called now, and beat the Steelers. Gain some positive momentum there, but, I mean, if you're not in a situation where you're moving off Troy Anderson, you can forget the whole tanking thing. Like, they're trying to do everything they can to win games. And, I've gone on rants before in the past about tanking. I think that's kind of the fact that tanking gets so much dialogue in this industry to me is completely ridiculous, but I think you're in a spot now if you're the Bengals where it's like, if you move off Troy Anderson, you have an opportunity to get a better pick. I'm not suggesting that they tank, but I am suggesting that Troy Anderson's not going to be here next year, so you might as well see what you can do as a defense without him. And clearly the past 2 games you haven't been with him, and he's been hurt, and it's not been good. But I don't know. I would have liked to see Cincinnati be a little bit more aggressive, trying to move off some guys here at the deadline and really kind of change the direction of where they're going, specifically as a defense, and stockpile some of those picks, and then ideally bring in a new guy to make those decisions come April instead of Duke Tobin. There was the report. We talked about this on the live show as well yesterday. Mike Florio, NBC Sports. He came out and was like, yeah, heads are going to roll here in Cincinnati. Duke Tobin, that's a name to watch. He might not have a job as early as the bye. And, Reed and I went back and forth on this on Off the Bench today. Craig, Casey, and myself also did on the live show yesterday. It feels like if you're Florio, you're in a spot where it's like, well, I mean, it's a historically bad defense. It's a hilariously bad defense. It's literally trending in the direction of being the worst defense to ever grace the playing surface in the National Football League. Heads better roll, right? And I feel like that's kind of where he's getting that from. I don't know if there's been tangible proof that he's got or tangible sourcing that this is actually something that is going to happen. Usually the phrase, when there's smoke, there's fire. I don't really know if that's smoke, to be honest with you, to be completely honest with you. But we'll see. I'm adamant that I think there needs to be a change there. Duke Tobin, has he done some good things in the past? Yeah, but that was a long time ago. And it's not like he's average right now, or it's not like he's mediocre right now, or it's not like he's a little bit below average right now. He's been downright awful with his assessment of players in the draft and in free agency as well. I think we sit here and we talk about all these draft picks that stink, but let's look at the free agency misses there as well. Going back to even last year, Sheldon Rankins. Now, I understand, he played a few games, had the hamstring at first, didn't play a ton for the Bengals when he was out there. It was really, really bad, and then he was out with an illness the whole rest of the year, and we all were like, what in the heck is going on? For whatever reason, his camp wanted to keep that close to the vest, and then he came out, and it was like a life-threatening situation for Sheldon Rankins. I think we all felt bad, like, dang, why didn't you just go out there and tell us that instead of, just going on this being inactive because of an illness? We're all sitting here ripping you apart. Like, you could have just came out and been like, yo, this is a very serious issue that we're dealing with. Regardless, swing and a miss there with Sheldon Rankins. Opted not to keep DJ Reader. DJ Reader got paid less money than what you paid Sheldon Rankins. So basically, you just decided you wanted Rankins over Reader. Terrible. What are we doing? Geno Stone. Again, I was fine with the Geno Stone addition when they made it, right? I mean, he played, because all I had seen is him play well for the Ravens against you. So I was like, yeah, sure, we'll take him. But I'm not the director of player personnel, right? And that's been horrible, and you continue to run him out there, which is crazy. Like, Tyson Anderson must not be any good at playing safety, right? We all rave about Tyson Anderson and how he is in the locker room and his special teams presence. He must stink at playing safety if he still can't get out on the field for Geno Stone. The list kind of goes on and on and on, to be honest with you. And if you remember Nick Scott a couple of years ago, like, what the heck was that? Von Bell, you took a swing, you tried to rekindle some of that magic. Clearly he was washed, right? That didn't work out. So it's not just the draft. It's free agency. That's been really, really bad there as well. And Lucas Patrick, who, I don't know if the intent was for him to be the guy as one of your starters all year, but obviously he's back and he's not out there starting, right? So, I mean, that's just another miss. So the list goes on and on for him. I think it's run its course. I think it's time to, move on. But ultimately, I would be surprised if Cincinnati made that decision. Going into the bye week, the biggest question is how many points are you going to give up to the bye? Are you going to find a way to lose this week? Is the bye week going to drop 35 on you? I think that's kind of the biggest question here at this point. But where do you go? Where do you go if you're the Cincinnati Bengals? Because you're going great places offensively, but you're so bad on defense, so putrid on defense, it's not enough. And, turning the page to Pittsburgh, people had kind of written them off, right? And then what did they do? They go out there and beat Indianapolis, who a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people said was the best team in the AFC. They beat them. I get it was a close game, but they kind of, it felt like they kind of had their way with them a little bit. They resembled that, Pittsburgh defense that had been non-existent for months on end to this point. And Rodgers is playing at an incredible level. They're at 41 years of age. They got some skill guys. So, I think everybody thought Pittsburgh was going to fall off. And shoot, don't look now, but if they beat the Chargers, they're right back to dominating this division like they were earlier in the year. That's going to be a great game, by the way. It's SoFi Stadium, Sunday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers in L.A. Feels like one of those games at SoFi, by the way, where the opposing team's fan base just takes over the stadium. That oftentimes happens at Charger games. But that feels like that's going to be like a borderline home game on the West Coast for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if they win that game, and then if you lose to them, I don't care what Baltimore's doing, Pittsburgh's taking off there at that point. So I think some people kind of wrote off Pittsburgh a little prematurely there, but we'll see. And then after that, you got to play the Ravens twice. That's going to be difficult. Lamar's going to score a ton of points on this defense. It's going to be basically like what we've seen the past couple of years with Joe Burrow, where you play Baltimore and it's like, all right, we're getting this crazy shootout. Last person to have the ball, last team to have the ball wins. So we'll see if Joe Flacco's healthy enough to put himself in that position there. But not great, obviously. Not a ton of changes were made. Not surprising, unfortunately, but just kind of the reality of the situation here for the Bengals. You hope you can get healthy. You hope you can make some improvements, and hope you can do a better job of coaching and get yourself in a position to potentially compete against Pittsburgh and maybe string together some wins and still hold on to your season here. You got to go on some run now, right? It's like, all of us, we're all sitting here ticked off, but it's like, I think now as a fan base, it's like, all right, let's see if you can win some games. You kept Trey, right? Hopefully he can come back from his injury. Hopefully he's back after the bye. Flacco's been brilliant. The offense is going to score points. Defense doesn't have to be great. Doesn't even have to be mediocre, to be honest with you. Just a step below mediocre should be good enough for this Bengals team, but unfortunately for them, they are historically bad. I want to end our Bengals conversation with this. We sit here and we talk about firing Zach Taylor and firing Duke Tobin and making these kinds of moves. Firing Al Golden. Why are we not talking about firing Jerry Montgomery? To be honest with you, I think that's a move that could have been made here this week. Now, I get it. Zach made the firing of Lou last year, and it's a really bad look on Zach if he just immediately fires somebody else a couple of weeks into the season because it didn't improve at all on defense. We said the two biggest decisions for the Bengals going into this year was who Zach Taylor was going to hire as the defensive coordinator and who they were going to pick at number 17 overall. Two of the biggest decisions for the Bengals in like the past 5 years, literally. And you swung and missed on both of them. Maybe Al Golden can coach, but he just another person. I don't know, but it looks like you swung and missed on both of them. But Jerry Montgomery, that was a move where I'm sitting there like, what are we doing? Jerry Montgomery, of course, is the defensive line coach, replacing Marion Hobby from years prior. Jerry Montgomery was the defensive line coach of the New England Patriots last year. Jerry Montgomery stunk in New England. That offensive line for the Patriots last year was horrible. Vrabel comes in. That was one of the best defensive lines in football. But that defensive line last year in New England was horrible. And it's like, yeah, we're going to hire this guy. Like, why? He was terrible last year. And when you look at NFL football, collegiate football there as well. It starts with the quarterback, and it starts in the trenches, right? And we sit here and we say, yeah, they can't tackle on the back end. Their linebackers stink. They're too young. They don't know what they're doing. All that's true. But that doesn't get as exposed as badly if you had something on the defensive line, if you had some semblance of being able to stop the run, some semblance of being able to pressure the quarterback, some semblance of being able to get the quarterback on the ground. I mean, this defensive line, they line up and they get pushed back on every single play. And it's like, oh, they're 3 yards behind. Now it's like, oh, they're running the football, 5-yard gain, constantly in third and short situations, right? As a defense, hard to get off the field on 3rd and 3. Hard to get off the field on 3rd and 2, right? The defensive line is just horrible. And you could sit here and say, yeah, Duke Tobin swinging and missing on McKinley Jackson, of course, who's not even playing. Chris Jenkins Jr., B.J. Hill, what are you doing paying him again? Guy does nothing, right? But also Jerry Montgomery, coach these guys, man. Do something. Right? Find ways to, creatively get some pressure on the quarterback. I understand if the personnel's not there. There's some things you can do as a coach to find ways to get pressure on the quarterback. And Jerry Montgomery ain't doing it. So that's one name where it's like nobody has called for his job. Why not? Jerry Montgomery has been absolutely horrible for you this year, and that was a bad hire by Zach Taylor, right? He was bad last year as the defensive line coach. He's going to come here with worse players than they had in New England and be good? No, absolutely not. And I understand he was in Green Bay before that, and he had success there a little bit in Green Bay. That probably was why you got T.J. Slayton, right? That marriage with Montgomery and Slayton in Green Bay. But what Montgomery did last year in New England was terrible. And you say, oh, yeah, we'll hire that. Why? He stunk. And you're going to hire him with worse players? Don't get it. Absolutely don't get it at all. All right, let's talk NFL trade deadline kind of as a whole. We talked about the Logan Wilson trade, obviously. 3 big moves as far as I'm concerned. And the Jets trade 2 of their 3 best players, right? Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams. And the Seahawks go out there and get Rashid Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints. And we'll get to that one in a minute because I really want to talk about that one. But we'll start with Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner, of course, went to the University of Cincinnati, was a top-of-the-line draft pick, was really good early in his career, and he got his big-time money extension for the Jets. So if you're the Colts here in this situation, you don't have to worry about extending him. Like, you got him, and you've got him for a while here. But you gave up 2 first-round picks in order to get it. And I respect the swing from Chris Ballard, right, the GM of the Colts. He's been in place here since 2017, I believe. And, this is a guy that going into the year, he was fighting for his job. And it looks like he hit the Daniel Jones thing out of the park, and that's going to save him. And he's in a spot here where he's got really nothing to lose, where he's like, yeah, nobody expected us to be good. We're really good. Well, let's go all in for this move for Sauce Gardner. But trading 2 first-round picks for a corner, to me, is not good. Is not good at all. And maybe they prove me wrong, and maybe Indianapolis goes and competes in the AFC Championship here, but I think that's got to be like the bar, right? I sat on this show earlier this week and said, like, if you get to the playoffs, if you're the Colts, season's a success. You had Daniel Jones coming in. Nobody expected anything from you. If you get to the playoffs, it's a success. Now, all of a sudden, you make this move where you give up 2 first-round picks. You don't have a first-round pick here this year. You don't have one in 2027 either. Now it's like you better make the AFC Championship here with a move like this. Again, I respect the swing from Chris Ballard. I really do, right? Because clearly, ever since Luck retired, they've kind of been in shambles. Kind of a miraculous he's been able to hold on to his job this long to this point. Hit the Daniel Jones thing out of the park. Great hire, by the way, for Shane Steichen. Did a great job there. But 2 first-round picks for a corner, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't care how good you are at corner. I don't think that is a position where you can give up 2 first-round picks. It's just so, one, the injuries that these guys have. Sometimes they age really, really quickly. If they lose a step, then it's like, well, they're not even nearly the same player they once were. And that's a big issue. And I look at Sauce, and I see, like, yeah, we all loved him at UC. He was incredible. First couple of years with the Jets, yeah, he was incredible. But this recent version of Sauce Gardner, he's not the best cornerback in the league. He's not even close, really, as far as I'm concerned. I think Surtain is miles in front of him. Stingley, I think, offers you a lot more there as well. And Sauce Gardner, his thing is he's big and physical and tough, and he'll kind of bully you a little bit. Well, if you're in a situation with Sauce Gardner, and we kind of talked about this earlier in his career, it's like, well, if he starts getting called for pass interference here, he's going to be in trouble. And that's kind of happened a little bit for Sauce Gardner. He doesn't have, crazy speed where he can just mirror you and run with you all along the football field. He's not as twitchy and athletic as a guy like Stingley or a guy like Surtain, right? This isn't the best cornerback in the National Football League. And you just gave 2 first-round picks for him. Right? Remember when the Rams traded for Jalen Ramsey? At the time, it was like, this is the best cornerback in the National Football League. Go get him. And they did, and it clearly worked out for him. That's not the situation we're in here with Sauce Gardner. You just gave up 2 first-round picks for a corner, right? Again, respect the swing. Chris Ballard, he went out there and he said, you know what? We're going to take a swing. We're going to go all in here on this year. We feel like we had a roster to win a Super Bowl. We're going all in. I respect that. It takes a lot of guts to do that as a GM. Sometimes these guys are a little bit tentative. That wasn't Chris Ballard. But I do not see that. Sauce Gardner, 2 first-round picks. He's not the best corner in the National Football League. I would even go as far as to say it's not close, right? He's had some injury concerns. It's an injury-prone position, really, at cornerback. And, to give up 2 first-round picks for him. And, we'll see if Travaris Ward can, come back. And he's having a really good year, by the way, for Anarumo. So if you pair him with Ward, Sauce and Ward, maybe you really have something there. But that is a really aggressive swing. 2 first-round picks. this day and age in the NFL, it seems like as time goes on, picks just continue to become a little bit more valuable. I mean, like, do you think of Sauce Gardner as impactful as a guy like Micah Parsons? No, right? If you're going to go all in on that player, you got to go all in on a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman, all right? It's a trench guy, it's a quarterback, maybe a receiver, but not a corner. Not a corner. I don't understand that at all. Wish him the best, obviously. Went to UC, what have you. Now he has an opportunity to play on a good team, right? And we'll see if it works out. But all of a sudden, if you're the Colts, you put a ton of pressure on yourself because I think you're a team that gets in the playoffs and win a game, even without Sauce Gardner. Well, now your expectation is higher. You just gave up 2 first-round picks. Like, you need to see an AFC championship here in the next couple of years. And do you really think, as good as Daniel Jones has been, that he's capable of doing that? I don't know. I have my reservations when it comes to that. Quinnen Williams, another good player. By the way, Quinnen Williams, who's a more better, valuable player, Quinnen Williams or Sauce Gardner? Quinnen Williams, right? Really, without a doubt. Interior defensive lineman, great run stopper, applies pressure on the quarterback. He's a great player. He's fantastic. And it was kind of an interesting move from Jerry. When you got the news that they did it, my initial reaction was, what? Like, why? Like, you're not going to win this year. What are you doing? Well, you still have an opportunity here. The Cowboys obviously have an additional first-round pick this year with the Micah Parsons trade, and they still will have 2 first-round picks in 2026. So they're basically going kind of all in for the 2026 season and the 2027 season. I think this year's kind of a lost cause. Obviously, it kind of provides some energy and some enthusiasm into the team for Brian Schottenheimer. I think this is kind of a tip of the hat to Brian Schottenheimer if you're Jerry Jones, basically saying, you know what, we believe in you. Hasn't been pretty or super pretty throughout the whole year to this point, but offensively, we like what you're doing with Dak. Dak still can play at a high level. We obviously got to fix this defense. We're going to throw you a bone here, and we're going to show you that, hey, we believe in you. Might not work out for us this year, but going forward, next year is a big year. I mean, they got two first-round picks here this year due to the Dallas Cowboys, and they're going to go defense on those picks. And if you can hit on them and get some guys that can come in and contribute right away, all of a sudden you put Quinnen Williams there, all of a sudden you're forgetting about Micah Parsons not being there, and it becomes a good move. And so it's a second-round pick, I believe, this year for the Cowboys, and a first-rounder in 27. Going to the Jets in the Quinnen Williams deal, I believe that is what it is. Also, Mozzie Smith going. And by the way, I touch on this real quick. A.D. Mitchell, you gave him up there as well if you're the New York Jets. So the Sauce deal really has me like, whoa, what in the world is going on there? But A.D. Mitchell, has he, been a great player in the NFL? No, but I think he's got some upside, right? A couple of years ago, coming out of Texas, a lot of people thought that, okay, he could potentially be a quality player for you. So that's another piece that you lose there if you're the Indianapolis Colts. But the Quinnen Williams trade, at first I was like, what are you doing, Dallas? And then I was like, okay, I see what you're doing there. You believe in the offense. You think next year you're going to be able to be really good on offense still. You got CeeDee under contract. We'll see what they do with George Pickens. And if you can just rebuild that defense, they're kind of in a similar situation to the Bengals where it's like, we don't need a top 10 defense. We just need a defense that's middle of the pack type situation. I think you can do that with a guy like Quinnen Williams. He really is a good catalyst. I love Quinnen Williams. I loved him at Alabama. And he's a terrific football player, and he's kind of been in purgatory here for his career as he's been a member of the New York Jets. But, Quinnen Williams, another big-time trade. And, if you're Garrett Wilson, you're probably just like, dang, right? I mean, it's like you're going to give 2 of your best 3 players away. The Jets are cooked for the foreseeable future. We'll talk about the Jets a little bit more in detail after we talk about the Shaheed trade. But, I mean, I kind of feel bad for Garrett Wilson. Like, he's in his prime right now, and he's got no quarterback. It's his buddy Field, so maybe that helps a little bit. And just no structure around him. And this Jets team is bad this year, but it's going to be worse or just as bad next year. It's going to be a while before they even have a chance at getting this thing cleaned up. But we'll talk about the Jets in a second. I think those are 2 huge names right there, obviously, Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. It is my opinion that the best move of the day was the Seattle Seahawks trading for Rashid Shaheed. And Rashid Shaheed, former wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints, guy's a burner. Guy's a speedster. Guy is a down-the-field threat. And obviously JSN has incredible speed there as well. But all of a sudden, you put him on the Seattle offense, and you go, oh, right? I understand he's not going to come in and be the one. You got JSN. You don't need the one. Cooper Kupp still does his job out there. Is he the, former Triple Crown guy that he once was? No, but still a really good football player. right? And you bring Shaheed here into this offense. It's that down the field threat. It's that vertical presence. All of a sudden you go, oh, Seattle, like that's not a move that's going to set you back if you miss, right? 4th, 5th round pick for him. You didn't have to give up a 1st round pick. You didn't give up 2 like the freaking Colts did. For Sauce Gardner, it's 4th, 5th round pick. Not much there. You can afford that for a player that's going to come in here, have instant impact. This is a guy in New Orleans. Think about, what they've been doing at the quarterback position. Just shambles. Complete shambles. Rattler, now they're on Shuck. He's no good. We all know that, right? And, Shaheed's still been able to put up some numbers. I think he was on track for a 1,000-yard season, which is really impressive because New Orleans is a complete mess, especially on the offensive side of the football. And, look, we had Seattle high in our power rankings this week. I think they are a real threat in this thing, man. I really do. Sam Darnold, he makes some dumb mistakes, but he loves throwing the ball down the football field. Think about that last year in Minnesota, right? How often they would take deep shots to JJ and Jordan Addison there as well. Now all of a sudden you got JSN and Kupp, vertical guy going down the field, and Rashid Shaheed really can help spread things out. That offense becomes really, really fun now, and you got 2 quality backs there with Walker and Charbonnet. And that defense, John Schneider has done a terrific job. And people talk about Howie Roseman, and they talk about Brett Veach, and they talk about Les Snead as kind of the top-of-the-line GMs. John Schneider's unbelievable. What he's done, and there's 2 massive moves that he has made that he has absolutely hit out of the park. When they traded Russell Wilson, a lot of people were like, oh, that's a problem. What is Seattle doing? These guys are about to lose their jobs. No. Actually, the people in Denver should have been the people that lost their jobs there in that situation, because brilliant trade from John Schneider to get rid of Russell Wilson. He was kind of, wasn't like everybody loved him in the locker room. His performance clearly was going downhill. Couldn't, escape as well outside the pocket. And from the pocket, Russell Wilson's just not a starting NFL quarterback. What made him special was his ability to escape, what he could do outside the pocket. For whatever reason, he aged rather quickly. He took a lot of shots early in his career. Schneider saw that. He moved off, got a bunch of picks there. From the Seahawks, from the Broncos, rather, there as well. The decision to move off Pete Carroll. I love Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll's tremendous. I'm rooting for him in Vegas. In that division, with the roster he has and the quarterback he has, he doesn't really have much of a chance. Tom Brady hosed him when he didn't want Sam Darnold and he went with Geno Smith, right? So I don't know if it's going to work out for Pete in Vegas. But, that's a tough decision. You won a Super Bowl with Pete. Should have won 2, right? And he says, you know what? We're going to move off you, Pete. Mike McDonald. What a hire that was. Incredible. This guy's, one of the young up-and-coming coaches in this league. Didn't get a ton of buzz around him last year, but now it's like, oh, this team was one of the best teams in the NFC. We were talking about the Seattle Seahawks, the DK Metcalf deal. Tremendous, right? He knew what he had in JSN. He said, DK, you've done good things for us. You put up big numbers. You sold a lot of jerseys, right? A lot of people love you. But we're going to move off of you. We got this guy here in Smith and Jigba that is ready to be a 1, and clearly JSN is ready to be a 1. So John Schneider deserves a lot of credit for how he has handled the operation there in Seattle for several years now, and he's one of those guys, man. That is the top-of-the-line GM there, and I'm telling you, this move for Rashid Shaheed is going to be huge for them. Now, they're in a tough division. All right, is this going to put them over top of the Rams? No, but we do know the Rams have kind of lost some games that, maybe they shouldn't, or they mess around a little bit, play with their food from time to time. I still think the Rams are a better team. I still think the Rams ultimately win that division and probably get further in the playoffs as well. But Seattle, man, they're a real threat. And then the Sam Darnold going after him in free agency, great move by John Schneider. And he's done a lot of great things. And defensively, you got a bunch of guys on rookie contracts that can play. That can absolutely go out there and play. So John Schneider, he's kind of flown under the radar here a little bit, but the moves that he has made, absolutely tremendous for the Seattle Seahawks. And to me, I tweeted this yesterday, I think that's the move of the day, right? I get it's not as big of a name as Quinn Williams or Sauce Gardner, but only a 4th or 5th round pick for a team that literally you just give them a guy that can run down the field, be a vertical threat for you, and their offense is really going to take off. Shaheed's a burner now. He's a speedster. If you watch the Saints at all, it's a mess, so I don't blame him if you haven't. But he can flat out get down the football field. And I think Sam Darnold chucking that thing up, JSN, clearly a 1. Kupp still has it. They can run the ball. Defense is great. Great home field advantage. Look out for the Seattle Seahawks. Great move from John Schneider and company. Let's get into our CFB Top 10 here on the show. We do it every Wednesday morning, but now we can compare it to the college football playoff rankings, which is pretty exciting. Those first rankings came out yesterday, so we'll go 10-1 as we always do. Not a ton of shakeup, to be completely honest with you. But we'll roll through this here on the show. The first 2 teams that I have on the outside looking in, number 1 is Louisville. Miller Moss has done a nice job Jeff Brom, we've done all these segments on, head coaching openings, right? Penn State, Florida, LSU, the job openings that have become open. Auburn, we just did. That was the one that was escaping my head there. We did that one yesterday. But Jeff Brom's not a name we've thrown out a ton. Maybe we should have thrown his name in the hat for some of these job openings because he's done a really nice job at Louisville. They hit on the portal with the quarterback and Miller Moss, struggled at USC, he's done great things, and has won a lot of football games here at Louisville. So when I look at the ACC, it's a weird conference. They're only going to get one team in the college football playoff, right? Very weak conference. But who's that team going to be? It's going to be Louisville? It's going to be SMU? Is it going to be Miami somehow if they can, pick up the pieces? Right? Duke, maybe. Like, there's definitely, teams in this conference that, we don't really know. Virginia and Georgia Tech, they're at the top right now. And Pitt, obviously a team. So there's a lot of teams still in the mix to be that team for the ACC. And my gut tells me right now, I'm not fully sold on them. Not fully sold on them here at this point. But Louisville might be that team. They got Cal, Clemson, SMU, and Kentucky the rest of the way. So I think for now, again, I don't feel great about this, but for now I'll say Louisville's my front runner in the ACC. So I've got them right on the outside looking in. And how about Texas? They were right on the outside looking in too. Look, the past couple of weeks, not besides the Vandy game, well, we can even include the Vandy game really as well. Kentucky, Mississippi State, two of the worst teams in the SEC. You went to overtime in both of them. I get it, you're on the road, but on the road in Lexington, Kroger Field, okay, that's not really a tough SEC environment there. On the road, you make a ton of mistakes, but all of a sudden you look down and Arch, boom, absolutely goes off against Vanderbilt. It's like, oh, that guy, that's who we all thought would start the year, right? That's the guy that we thought was going to win the Heisman Trophy. That's the guy that we thought could potentially be the number one overall pick. Right there, what you saw in the Vandy game. He was terrific. And now he's playing with a bunch of confidence, playing with some moxie. You look at their schedule and you go, oh, they got the bye this week. If they can go into Athens and beat Georgia, look out. Here come the Longhorns, right? Here come the Longhorns. Especially you get Michael Taft back there defensively. Simmons, great player there off the edge for them. They got good linebacker there, as well. So I think, Texas all of a sudden they're kind of becoming a threat here. But obviously they got Georgia and they got A&M to end the year. So we'll see. But Texas, look, they won those games. It didn't look good. It wasn't pretty. But they won those games. And then the Vandy game, they dominated that whole game. And then you look and they only won by 3. And it's like, how the heck does that happen? Just a fourth quarter collapse. But they played so well the first 3 quarters. They were able to get away with it. So Texas got all types of issues, right? You can't be, messing around. They're borderline lucky to beat Kentucky and Mississippi State. But at the end of the day, they're wins. And maybe Texas can be a factor in this thing. Sark, to me, everybody was beating up on Arch Manning and saying, this guy's a fraud or whatever, or he was adopted, right? He's not an actual Manning. But Sark was navigating around some of the criticism, and it was all going to his quarterback. Sark, I think, deserves a lot of criticism. He deserves some credit for, picking up that win against Vanderbilt at home. It had been a while since they've been home. So we'll see how they perform when they have to go to Georgia after the bye. But, Georgia after a bye, you got some time here to get healthier, freshen yourself up a little bit, and go in there and have an opportunity. We'll get to Georgia in a second. Georgia's still a threat to win the national title, but this ain't the Georgia that we've been accustomed to seeing over the past few years. They are vulnerable, and I am so excited about that game in a couple of weeks, Texas and Georgia. They're on the outside looking in. Not quite ready to put them in the top 10 here at this point. Notre Dame, I have them at 10. Last week, I had them at 9. They are number 10 in the college football playoff rankings. Very early on after they dropped those early games to A&M and Miami, I said, you know what, Notre Dame's going to win out, and they're going to have an opportunity here to go to the playoff again. And I still believe that's the case. But Boston College, I get you're on the road, but that BC team stinks, and you messed around with them. You're able to pull away late. You won 25-10. But I left that Boston College game last week with a little bit less confidence in the Fighting Irish, but still enough to be at number 10. At number 9, I have BYU. Last week I didn't have them in, and the college football playoff system has them at 7. So they have them one notch above Texas Tech, who I'll get to Texas Tech here in a minute. I get BYU's undefeated. Texas Tech has the one loss. There's a reason Texas Tech's favored by 10.5 points this week. I hope it's a good game. I think it's at noon, by the way. College football or college game day is there. So 7 and 8 in the CFP rankings, BYU and Texas Tech. I just think Texas Tech's a better team. They got more pieces. I think they're better coached. No disrespect there to BYU at all. But I've got BYU at 9 and then Texas Tech there at 8. in my power rankings here. And that was kind of my one takeaway. I don't have any issues with the CFP rankings that came out last night for the most part, but I thought maybe a little bit too high on the Big 12, where it's like, Utah still has 2 losses. They're up a little bit high, kind of a little bit there. And it's like, they kind of disrespected Oregon. We'll touch on that in a second. They had these 2 teams above Oregon, which to me is a bit of a head-scratcher, to be completely honest with you. But I've got Texas Tech just a notch above BYU. I expect them to win at home in Lubbock this week. 10.5 points is the spread last I looked. And then all of a sudden BYU would have 1 loss, hypothetically. And then that game against UC, if UC beats Arizona, it gets even bigger, right, for both teams at that point. So, I think they're just a little bit too high on the Big 12. So I got BYU at 9 and then Tech at 8. At 7, I have Oregon. Last week I had them at 6. The college football playoff system, again, has them at 9. They have Tech and BYU above them. Look, I didn't love what I saw from Oregon against Wisconsin. I get that, but they've got guys in the trenches. They've got a competent quarterback. We all love Dan Lanning. I think they deserve to be at 7. They were idle last week. They didn't play, but huge game this week. A lot of people talk about A&M and Missouri and obviously Tech and BYU, but Oregon, Iowa, I am excited for that game. Kinnick Stadium is where they will be playing, so it's in Des Moines for that game. That is an incredible home field advantage. And this Iowa team, all of a sudden, if they can find a way to pull the upset against Oregon, look for them to be kind of a team that might backdoor their way into the college football playoff. Just saying. The Big Ten would be so much better if Iowa could be good on more of a regular basis. Be careful. Watch that. I think it's only 6.5 points in favor of Oregon. Again, Kinnick, that place is going to be rocking. Tough place to play. Oregon, maybe not as good as we thought early in the year. They lost to Indiana. They messed around a little bit with Wisconsin, who's a terrible team. So that game this weekend, we'll preview that on Friday, by the way. And I'm really looking forward to that game. Look at Iowa potentially pulling the upset there in that game. But for now, I got Oregon at 7. Ole Miss at 6. Last week I had them at 7. College football playoff rankings have them at 6. They beat the crap out of South Carolina last week. There's no way they shouldn't make the playoff. Like, you look at their schedule, there's not much the rest of the way. They should win out, and then, we'll see, depending on what happens with A&M and Alabama, if they'll be, in the SEC championship or not. But Lane Kiffin needs to make the college football playoff. That needs to happen. He's had opportunities in recent years, and they lose games they shouldn't, right? Everybody's viewing Lane as a guy that LSU should want, that Penn State should want, that Florida should want, and I agree, but he needs to make the playoff. There is no reason in the world that he should not make the college football playoff. I think they're real. They were good enough defensively, right? That's always been the knock on them. Trinidad Shambliss playing at a high level. Kiffin dialing it up. Ole Miss is the best team that he's had, I think, or they're performing the best that they ever have. No reason that they shouldn't make the college football playoff. I got Ole Miss at 6. 5, Georgia. Last week I had them at 5. College football playoff has them at 5. They beat Florida 24-20. Florida's a weird team. They're playing with an interim coach. I don't know why they play that game in Jacksonville, right? You put that game in the swamp, put it in Athens, and it just feels bigger. So you're in Jacksonville. Well, what are you doing? I don't get that at all. Again, Georgia's not the typical Georgia teams that we've seen in recent years. But they got Kirby Smart. They got the best head coach in college football, and he's going to be the difference in a lot of these games. I think flat out he was the difference in the Florida game. Gunnar Stockton has surprised me. I didn't think he would be this good. I didn't think the Georgia defense would be this bad. Just the reality of the situation. They're going to lose another game this year, I think, whether it's Texas, whether it's Georgia Tech. If they get into the SEC championship, if people slip up at the top, they're going to lose again before the playoff. And I think there's a world where they don't make the playoff. And I also think there's a world where they win the national title. So Georgia's very much kind of a wild card here at this point. I have them at 5. Don't feel great about them. Again, they're going to lose again at some point, but they still have the top of the line ceiling with Kirby calling the shots. Got them at 5 in complete alignment with last week and the college football playoff rankings. Now, we just did 10-5. And, I've been very clear here that Ohio State has separated themselves from the pack. And I think there's 4 teams at the top that have, including Ohio State, that have additionally separated themselves from the pack a little bit here as well. And at number 4, I've got A&M. College football playoff rankings have them at 3. They did not play last week. They've got a couple of – obviously, they end with Texas. That's going to be a tough game. I have my questions about their defense. They did a nice job. Obviously beat the crud out of LSU. Brian Kelly gets fired. Marcel Reed, insert him into the Heisman conversation. He's for real. Craver and Concepcion on the outside. They got skill guys. Absolutely do the Aggies. I've got them at 4. And I think they're real. I don't think they're fraudulent. We'll see if they lose to Texas or lose another game this year. Missouri, by the way, they played this week on the road at Missouri. I think this will be a good gauge for who's better, Alabama or Texas A&M, because we saw Alabama go to Missouri, and it was a one-score game. It was a close game, but you knew Alabama was kind of going to win that game. It's borderline good environment there. They do have the reconstruction there in the end zone, which makes it the optics of that aren't great. But, going to there and winning, I think that would show us a lot for A&M. So keep an eye on that game. Upset alert, obviously. Upset alert for A&M this week. 3, I got Indiana. Last week I had them at 3 as well. College football playoff system has them at 2. They beat the crud out of Maryland 55-10. That's the thing, by the way, about Indiana, which really impresses me and why I like Indiana. Like, obviously, you have teams where you go in, you saw it with Alabama for years, Ohio State, where it's like, you should win this game. Go win the game. And they go win the game. That's not what Indiana does. They go in there and they beat the tar out of you. And Cignetti loves doing it. I think he literally loves doing it. And they just abused Maryland. And that Maryland team's not that bad. And they went in there and destroyed them. That is what they do. That's their mission, to do it each and every week. They are a real threat here. I'm not fully in on Mendoza like much people that talk about the sport are. But they're for real. Absolutely. They got Penn State this week, going to Penn State. They should smack Penn State, right? Penn State is in preseason Penn State, right? This is, a team that Ohio State last week, it was a one-score game going into the half. Then Ohio State kind of was like, it's time to be Ohio State here and take off on them. They did. Kind of expect a similar game with Indiana, but that game shouldn't be close. I get you. It's not Ohio State. You're not playing at home here if you're Indiana. You got to go to Happy Valley. But they should dominate that game, and I think they will. And I think they're very much a threat here in the Big Ten. And I think as a college football fan here, assuming Ohio State beats Michigan, which probably not a safe assumption to make, but Ohio State, Indiana, Big Ten championship, 2 undefeated teams would just be chills. Would be chills in Indianapolis. Hope it happens. 2, I got Bama. Last week I had them at 2. CFP has them at 4. They didn't play last week. LSU, I understand they're dumpster fire. I understand they fired Brian Kelly. It's LSU, Alabama. A lot can go out the window. Or Alabama, Auburn, everything goes out the window. Kind of similar situation here at LSU week. Obviously, Alabama always has a bye before LSU. They got to keep it going, because I think in the back of everybody's mind is what happened week 1 in Tallahassee against Florida State, whereas teams like Ohio State, obviously, and Indiana don't have games like that. But I think when they're at their best, let me be very clear here, Alabama's not 2 if Ty Simpson isn't great. If Ty Simpson isn't great, they're like a 7, 8, 9, 10 type team. But when he's great, they can beat anybody. And he wasn't great for 3 quarters in South Carolina, and it looked like they were going to lose, had their backs against the wall. He was great in the 4th quarter, and it was just enough to pull them back. So that shows you, if he's not going to be great, they're not nearly as good as a roster as Indiana or Ohio State or A&M. The reason I have them at 2 is because their quarterback, who I think is the best quarterback in the country. But if he isn't great, they're not number 2, but enough to stay at the number 2 spot for me here this week. Big one against LSU at home. Not in Death Valley, at home this year for Alabama. 1, Ohio State. I've had them at 1 all year. The CFP rankings had them at 1. They beat Penn State. It was close in the first half, and they turned up on them in the second half. At will. The thing about Ohio State, at will. Oh, they need 50 yards? Fine. They can get it. Julian saying, you own a Tate, you own a Smith, shoot, maybe even Ennis. You can go to him there as well, right? Run game, it's your one concern if you're Ohio State. Bo Jackson looks pretty good to me. He's a true freshman. The other 2 guys, Peoples, Donaldson, Bo Jackson, if he can stay healthy, they can still run the football. There was people I was watching the show last night, and Booger McFarland, who, well, I'll just move on. Him and, Galloway and even Greg McElroy, too. It's like they're sitting there like, oh, Indiana might be the best team, or Texas A&M. Just open your eyes. Just open your eyes. I get they won it last year, but it's not like they've won it 5 years in a row. They're clearly the best team, right? That defense is absurd. That quarterback is absurd. Those receivers are absurd. Ryan Day's the second best coach in the country. Can Indiana or A&M beat them or Alabama? Yes, but they're clearly the better team. They are clearly the best team in the country. Oh, they haven't played anybody. That's fine. I understand that. I'm not sitting here acting like they have, right? Their schedule stinks. Doesn't matter. If they were playing good teams, they would still be winning, right? They'd probably still be winning. Would they be getting tested more? I think, honestly, this helps the rest of the country, Because if you handle Michigan, you're in an opportunity. If you're Ohio State, where it's like, yeah, you're here in the playoffs, you haven't faced any adversity, and that can come back to bite you. But to sit here and try to make an argument that Indiana should be one or that A&M should be one, what are you doing? What are you doing? Clearly, Ohio State, the best team in the country as of this moment. All right, let's roll through some sports headlines here to conclude today's show. I think we're going to do this segment a little bit more, where it's just a couple and it's just like a minute or two on each one. And the first one's not even serious. Tom Brady cloned his dog. What? Look, Tom Brady, I used to make the argument, by the way, that he wasn't the GOAT. And, by the way, I could still make that argument if I wanted to. I'm not going to do it. I was always a Peyton Manning guy. He was always the guy that I thought was the greatest player of all time. He's got more MVPs. We don't need to have the whole argument right here. But when he went to Tampa and won, I was like, all right, surrender. Tom Brady's the GOAT. As a broadcaster, started off bad. It's gotten better. But, I mean, as far as being a Troy Aikman or a Kirk Herbstreit, he's not even close. Not even close to that. But, yeah, he cloned his dog. What? I'm a dog person, right? You know, my childhood dog. We lost him a few years ago, right? But you miss them all the time. You see pictures, you get a little emotional, but clone them? What? I saw that yesterday, and I was like, obviously you see stuff these days on Twitter, right? And you're like, that's probably not true. And then I was like doing a little bit of research here, and I was like, oh, this is actually real. He actually did that. So yeah, not sure what was going on with that decision there from Tom Brady. More betting controversy, this time in the UFC. Happened last weekend. Basically, who the UFC works with when it comes to their sports gambling. Money was pouring in on this guy, a significant underdog to win, and not only win, but win in the first round. And the UFC went up to the kid like, and told him what was going down. He's like, there's something fishy going on here. And the kid was like, no, I'm absolutely going to go out there, destroy him, and win this fight. Well, then he gets his butt whipped in the first round, and it looks kind of fishy, right? And, we've had the issues. We talked about it on Off the Bench with the sports gambling, and Dana White is not one to play when it comes to this, because he said the first thing they did was call the FBI when the fight ended, said it doesn't look good, and there's an investigation. It's just, for these athletes, man, I don't get it, because there's not enough money in it in the long term to do stupid stuff like this. And, of course, the clip that went viral, the UFC had an issue with this, I think, last year maybe, in the past, and Dana White had a legendary clip. I'm a big Dana White guy. He's a polarizing figure, obviously. You either love him or you hate him. I personally love him. I think he's great. I think he's tremendous. I don't think the UFC would be anywhere near what it is without him. And to be honest with you, I'm a UFC fan, but like when he's gone and Rogan's gone, it's like, I don't know if I'll still be here. But I think Dana White's tremendous. He had a great clip. Go look it up of him talking about, not go to jail, go to federal prison. And, talking about that as it related to this stuff. But it's just, in fighting too, right? It's one thing to throw a baseball game, but you're going to go out there and willingly get your butt whooped? I mean, how stupid is that? Just completely ridiculous stuff there. So that's the latest betting controversy there in the UFC. Can't imagine throwing a fight. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go in here and lose this fight and allow this guy to whoop me. What are you doing? It's hard to wrap your head around. College basketball is back. Look, we're going to talk college hoops here on the show. Obviously, we only have an hour to work with here at this point. We'll see if that changes going forward. It's kind of tough during football season. I know most of you guys are here for football. I don't blame you. Football's king. We all understand that. But we're going to talk college hoops a lot on this show. And, Duke last night, they beat Texas. Look, I'm not a Duke guy. I'm not a Duke fan. I've always respected Coach K, but while he was the coach, I was more of a Roy Williams guy at Carolina. Respected Coach K, respected what he's done at Duke, but I was always kind of pulling for UNC. Now that's kind of flipped here with Shire, to be honest with you. I think Shire's tremendous. I remember when he was a player. That's kind of some of the earliest days of college basketball that I remember. He was tremendous, obviously won a title at Duke as a player. He's going to win one as a coach, only a matter of time. Heartbreaking loss, obviously, last year for them in the tournament with Cooper Flagg. They're not as good as they were last year, but you also have to understand here with Duke, it's always going to be a process early in the year because they're going to have so many freshmen playing. Now, this year, not as many, as they do have some guys coming back here. Isaiah Evans, of course, and Caleb Foster, sophomore, junior, respectively, were on the team last year, so there's some continuity there. And they have freshmen on top of that coming in. The Boozer twins, Cam seems like, he's the better one. Obviously, he's the starter. Caden coming off the bench there. But they got this freshman from Italy. That's absurd. Dame Sar is his name. So it's going to take them a little bit to gel and get, to be kind of an elite team, right? I think eventually they will be. I think they'll be a threat in this thing. Again, don't think they're as good as last year. They're 6th right now in the country. I know a lot of people here in Cincinnati were kind of hate watching that game, right? Just kind of rooting against Texas, hoping Texas got their butt whooped. Miller, he's got a ways to go, for the Texas, to be completely honest with you. Dalen Swain, my takeaway is Xavier could use Dalen Swain still. He looked pretty good in the ball game there last night. Texas got a while to go. They're not going to be much of a threat this year. Duke it'll take them a while to find their stride a little bit, but I think they're going to be a really good team, and they're going to be a threat to win this thing. But, great freshman on the team. Big fan of Shire as a coach, and it's only a matter of time before he gets one. The Chicago Bulls, 6-1 on the year, leading the Eastern Conference. Who would have thought that would be the case? Obviously, last year they trade Levine, they trade DeMar DeRozan, and then you're like, well, what do you got here if you're the Bulls? And they kind of put some stuff together there at the end of the year, and you're like, okay, right? And then you're in the play-in tournament for like the 3rd year in a row, I think, against the Heat, and you've lost every time. And kind of coming into this year, you're like, probably be back in the play-in, right? This team's awesome. If you haven't watched the Chicago Bulls, you need to watch them because they play a very exciting brand of basketball, and in some ways it kind of reminds me of a college team, and let me explain that. Usually you have a lot of egos in the NBA. It's a lot of ISO. It's a lot of, let's get our best player the ball and just kind of sit there and watch him and let him go to work, and that's very much the case when Levine was here, right? And look, Zach Levine's tremendous. He's a tremendous athlete, but what's he won? He didn't win anything, right? DeMar, when he's doing his one-on-one ISO stuff, shooting that mid-range jumper, getting fouled, great. Yeah, but where's the ball movement? Where's the chemistry? The ball movement and the chemistry here with this Bulls team is incredible. It is awesome to watch. And Modest Buzelis, who's a second-year player, they took him in the first round a couple of years ago. The fact that he was able to fall at that point in the draft, he might be the best player that came out of that draft 2 years ago. And if they can rely on him, what is he, 20 years of age? And all of a sudden, Josh Giddey, you pay him, he looks like an all-star. Right, and he was kind of, written off. He was in OKC, was a part of a lot of winning, and they were like, you know what, we're going to move off you. We're going to bring in defense here, and it worked for OKC. They won the title last year. But now Josh Giddey can be that point guard, right? He can be that facilitator. He can have more of a bigger role here in Chicago, and he is running that offense beautifully. If you saw the game winner, they played Philly last night. Philly, by the way, didn't score for the final 6 minutes and 20 seconds. In the ball game last night, and Philly, to me, we picked them to go to the NBA Finals, and the Bulls defense really clamped up there at the end of the game. They deserve a lot of credit. Philly kind of blew it there at the end, but still, the fact the Bulls were able to come back and win says a lot. I mean, the pass, the hammer from Giddey as he's driving down the lane. They were down 1 at the time, final possession, and he drives down the lane. He's trying to, take it to the rim or, make the defense think he's taking it to the rim. Embiid comes in and helps, and he swings the pass around Embiid just perfectly to Vucevic in the corner, hits him right in the hands, Swiss cheese from the corner, Bulls win. And Vuce is playing at an incredible level there as well. Who would have thought? I mean, you had two guys, you look at their rosters, you had two guys playing like all-stars here at this point for Josh Giddey and Nikola Vucevic. So I don't think this is fraudulent. I think they're going to be able to hang in there. Are they going to win the East? No. But they look like a team that's going to make the playoffs and not the play-in this year. The Chicago Bulls, keep an eye on them. They've beaten some good teams, by the way. That Philly team's a good team, right? And they clamped up on them there at the end. Trey Jones, he plays great defense. He's incredible. By the way, Kobe White not even playing for this team yet here at this point. He's been banged up with a calf. They'll get him back, who going into the year was like, he's going to be their best player. I was like, well, how do you fit him in here to this rotation? It's going to be incredible to watch there for the Bulls. Ayo Dosunmu, he's been great in the fourth quarter off the bench, former second-round pick. He's been tremendous. So the Chicago Bulls, how about him? 6-1 leading the East here at this point. What else? One more. Keegan Thompson, the Reds. We talked about this on Off the Bench. Reds signed a right-handed pitcher, Keegan Thompson, 1-year contract. He pitched 24 games in 2024. 2.67 ERA. Obviously, last year was not 2024. The most recent baseball year was 2025. He spent the entirety of that season in AAA, so okay, not great. Not great there. Former third-round pick in 2017 for the Cubs. Again, was an all of AAA last year. Walks can be issues for him, and he's not going to blow you away with his fastball. Throws a lot of different pitches, 6 pitches, 93-mile-per-hour fastball, and we'll see what his role looks like. Keegan Thompson, I think he could be, Nick Kirby talked about this. By the way, if you want more information on this, Nick Kirby's got you covered. We got the best Reds people in the world here at Chatterbox Sports. He put that video up yesterday, breaks it all down, where he is as a player, the money side of things, the pitches that he has. So check out that video. That went out yesterday. It's up on the channel. Nick Kirby, tremendous job breaking that down. So if you want more, I always, check those guys, Nick Kirby and Trace Fowler, when it comes to Reds. I'm a diehard Reds fan, don't get me wrong, but you're going to find the best Reds coverage and content over there. But check out that video if you haven't done so already. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is it's November 4th and you went and signed him. So that tells me that Brad Metter and Nick Kroll, they like something. With what they've seen. And potentially he could be a diamond in the rough type of guy. Talk about that term all the time with this team because it's a small market team and you have to hit on guys like this. And, we'll see. Nick pointed out could be like a Nick Martinez guy for you, assuming that Martinez is not going to be back with the Cincinnati Reds, and a guy that can be in the pen. He can start for you if you need to. He's going to go out there and compete. And, we'll see. I think, no reason to be bent out of shape about the move. No reason to be over the moon about the move either. But the Reds have done something. And obviously my take on, the Cincinnati Reds is season last year, total success. But you can't just run it back and expect to be better. You got to make some adjustments here this offseason, add a little bit, tweak a little bit, get a bat, left-handed power bat, get a corner outfielder. Address your pitching staff, and they've done that here with this move here. So my biggest takeaway is, they must like something if they're making a signing here at this stage of the offseason. All right, that'll do it for this Wednesday edition of the Stone Shield Show. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us as always. Clips on YouTube, they'll go up throughout the duration of the day. Be on the lookout for that. Our power rankings did it on the show yesterday. That'll go out here shortly. If you missed any part of the show, it's totally fine. Right? Totally get it. It's 11 to 12 on a weekday. You're busy. Podcast goes up later in the afternoon. Wherever you get your podcasts, check it out. Clips on YouTube, clips on social media. Give me a follow on Twitter, @StoneShields_. Give the show a follow on Twitter as well, @TheStoneShields. Going to try to get Hudson Clouky on the show tomorrow to talk Bearcat hoops. And we will have Richard Skinner of Local 12 on the show on Friday to talk Cincinnati Bengals. Certainly looking forward to that. Appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Until then, take care, everybody.